Welcome to Ask the Expert with noted radio host Steve Sleeper. Each week, Steve interviews entrepreneurs and professionals and shares their intriguing stories of success and service. Now, here's radio veteran Steve Sleeper.
Our guest today is Monique Velarde from the law office of Monique Velarde Reyes in El Paso, Texas. Monique is on your side fighting criminal charges or making a plan for your family's future. Attorney Velarde understands the need for open communication and is available anytime. I began the interview by asking Monique about herself and her firm.
My name is Monique Velarde. I've been an attorney now for, I'd say almost 13 years, or a little over 13 years at this point. I didn't actually start as an attorney. I started as a teacher. I was a middle school teacher, and I became an attorney on a bet with my middle school students. We had a career day one time, and I had all of the professions listed on a wall. And I was telling my students, you could do anything you want to. You just have to put your mind to it. And they didn't believe me. So I told them, if I want to change careers right now, I can. I turned around. I picked attorney because it was on the top of the list. Had I have picked doctor, I'd probably still be in school. But I told them if I want to change, I can. And they didn't believe me. So we made a bet. And I told them I would go to law school, become a lawyer, and they all had to graduate from high school. And lo and behold, I got into law school. End of the year, I told them I was leaving, and they surprised, upset that I was leaving. But at the end of the 4 years, 3 years and plus a little bit, they ended up graduating from high school, and I went to their graduation as a lawyer. So I didn't really have any desire at that time to be a lawyer. And once I did, I realized, well, shoot, I got to do something. So I went into criminal law. I love criminal law. It's always very interesting, especially for myself as a people person. Like I said, starting off as a teacher, I find that I still teach in a matter of speaking as a lawyer, helping people with their problems, trying to get along, through life. So I handle everything from traffic citations all the way to felonies in the state court.
What should I expect from a good criminal defense lawyer?
Communication. As attorneys, we all go to law school. We all know the law. We should. We all took the bar. We all passed. But what differentiates all of us is our ability to connect with our clients. Most of the time, obviously, this is the worst time in a person's life. This is their absolute low. And they're looking and reaching out to someone who's going to be able to help them. And not just help them through their legal matters, but through explaining what's going to happen, what to expect. A lot of my clients just want to be heard. So a good criminal defense lawyer will have that communication with their client. Obviously we can't be there 24/7, but we're definitely available when, those midnight questions come up the next day or the day after to be able to answer those questions. And I think that's what really sets apart a regular lawyer from a really good criminal defense attorney.
So what happens after a person is arrested?
A couple of things can happen. So after the arrest, and I have to remind people, an arrest just means that there was enough information there for that arrest. Doesn't mean that anybody's guilty. It doesn't mean that they're already convicted. And it doesn't take much to get arrested. Reasonable suspicion is not a high bar to reach. And so after the arrest, there should be a bond hearing that's set unless there's already a bond amount. If they pay for the bond, they'll get out. If they go through a bondsman, then they can pay that person a percentage and then they still get out. Or if for some reason the bond is too high, then one of the things as an attorney that we do is we have bond hearings to try to reduce those bonds to get people obviously to be out of jail, especially during these times, in order to be able to fight the case better. After they're released, then unfortunately comes the hardest part of all of this, which is waiting. Patience is key with criminal cases because sometimes they don't come up for some weeks, some months even, and unfortunately in some cases even years. But after a while, then we get into court. If it's a misdemeanor, then it's just a complaint that gets filed in court. If it's a felony, then we wait for an indictment, either from the grand jury, or if they've already had that going on, then it would already be in a court.
What's the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor?
So misdemeanors are, if you're in El Paso or in Texas anyway, you have A, B, and C. Class C misdemeanor is a traffic citation. So anytime anyone gets stopped for a ticket, that's actually a misdemeanor. But that was a Class C misdemeanor, has no jail time attached. That's a fine only type of offense. Class A's and B's are anywhere from DWIs to assaults to some thefts. And those are the highest, which is a Class A, is punishable up to a year in jail and or a $4,000 fine. With felonies, however, those are the more serious offenses, obviously, or the repeat offenses, even theft. If you already have one or two thefts, under your belt and you've been convicted for them, even stealing something as small as a razor can get you a felony. And now we're looking at a lot more time. It can be anywhere from state jail, which is a day-for-day offense, which means if you were to get 10 days of jail, you have to do the full 10 days, or most of the time it's either 30, 60, or 90 days, up to the first-degree felonies and the serious death penalty type cases. So a lot of it is time. With a felony, it can be as low as 6 months to a year, and go as high as 10 years to life type sentences.
Let's talk about DWIs. Do you see a lot of mistakes made by arresting officers? What happens there?
So DWIs are kind of interesting. The new officers are the ones who stumble the most. There are some mistakes made, usually with regards to the stop. If it's a right stop, a valid stop, speeding, if it's actually a traffic violation, sometimes they're not. Here in El Paso, we have a no refusal policy by the district attorney, which means when people are asked about giving a breath sample, if they refuse, then they automatically get a blood sample, and a warrant has to be given for those. The officers are fairly well trained with regards to that, but the differences and the nuances come in with, how well did they do field sobriety tests, which are these series of acrobatic, tests that need to be done on the side of a road. And as well as to make sure that the testing is done correctly. Intoxilizers are machines. They do break. They're not always perfect. The blood tests, there are always, issues to look at sometimes. And it doesn't happen anymore, not like in the very beginning, but, you don't want to use an alcohol pad to get blood because you're contaminating your sample. Making sure the person who is taking the sample is a licensed individual who knows how to take blood, who can do it correctly. So there have been mistakes made. They've gotten better, but there's always a rookie out there that you can find making a wrong move or getting a little overly excited about trying to make an arrest.
Are there a lot of plea bargains in the system?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the word plea bargain elicits kind of an image of, oh my gosh, they had to take these deals. And that's not always the case. Plea bargains often can result in a dismissal of some sort. Perhaps it's an anger management class for dismissal. Perhaps it's a drug alcohol class for dismissal, depending on the case. So sometimes that's the outcome. Clients will look at plea bargains and decide whether or not they want to take an offer based on the evidence that's provided. I tell all my clients, any trial, I don't care how great the evidence looks, I don't care how wonderful it is in our favor, it's always 50-50 because we're also dealing with a jury. We're dealing with 6 to 12 people who don't know us, who don't know the situation, and we have to rely on their insights and how much attention they paid in trial to make a decision on, my client's life. So sometimes these plea bargains turn out to be a better offer for them. People don't want to go through all of that. Or, like I said, sometimes the evidence is so overwhelming that They want just what the best deal is possible that they can get.
Okay, here's a scenario. Let's say I get arrested for first-time DUI.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to own up to it. I'm guilty. I want to plead guilty. I want to move on with my life. Do I still need a lawyer in that instance?
Technically, no. But realistically, it's good to have one. Even if somebody's just going to plead guilty, first time offense is actually a really good example of that. You go to trial or you go to court and a pro se defendant, which is somebody who doesn't have an attorney, can talk to the state, to the prosecutor and say, look, I want to plead guilty. Well, they can get a max type of plea offer, which is usually anywhere from 12 to 24 months of probation, up to a $2,000 fine, community service hours, probation hours. And if somebody who does not know what is going on or who does not know what's happening takes this, then they don't know that they could get something better, like a first-time offender program. A first-time offender program is 6 months, 2 classes, you pay a fee, and the case gets dismissed. Or a non-disclosure, a deferred type of probation where you do probation for a year, you have an interlock in your vehicle, you complete everything, you get the case dismissed, and after a certain amount of time, after 2 years, you can actually apply to get a non-disclosure, which means it hides the offense from people. It's not an expunction, but it serves the same effect. If an expunction is an eraser, a non-disclosure is basically a Band-Aid that hides it from people. So there's certain things that an attorney can do that can advise a client that might be a better offer than if the client or the defendant just walked in on his own.
As we do this interview, we're about 5 months into the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sure you're open right now, but how are you handling things? Are the courts open? What's all the procedures in El Paso at this time?
So I've never closed. I was blessed before this even started, we were moving towards a computer-based system, not, paperless kind of system. And so it was very easy for my office to make the transition to doing a lot of Zoom type of hearings, phone appointments. We were very lucky in that sense. As far as the courts go, the courts have been a little crazy. So in fact, just today, we just got new orders from the Supreme Court of Texas talking about when trials can start again. And it looks like they pushed it out until after October 1st. So for somebody who's out on bond or out on bail, it's not as big of a deal as somebody who maybe is incarcerated and who's waiting for that jury trial. Those are the people who are affected more. I know that the courts are trying to get together and see, they want to make sure to keep everybody safe and sound. In fact, just recently, they said that they're starting some of the grand juries again. And, they're taking precautions to protect everybody's safety, but I'm not sure until that first grand jury gets convened, I'm not sure who's going to actually come in for a jury, their jury summons. We're all the attorneys are kind of watching with bated breath to see what happens. As far as hearings go, every day we still have hearings. In fact, today I had a hearing this morning. They're carrying them on through Zoom. So we do have hearings. There are still plea deals being done. We're still able to do that some remotely with some conditions as far as people going to a place to be able to sign paperwork. The courts are working. They never completely close. It's just they're having to rethink how they approach it and do it in a way that still protects people's rights, still protects their liberties, and also with the understanding that these things have to be made public. So there's a lot of use of YouTube and like I said, in Zoom in order to make sure that people can see their hearings.
Our thanks to attorney Monique Velarde. She can be reached at 915-412-6818.
Thanks for listening to Ask the Expert with Steve Sleeper. Join us next time as entrepreneurs and professionals share their intriguing stories of success and service.